I'm really not sure what they're still angry about. The Attorney General of Guyana recently now jumped in and joined with his colleague, their advisor to the Health Ministry, in criticizing the Trinidadian Prime Minister for statements he made over a week ago. The Attorney General only now came out in one of his lives on Facebook and criticized the Dr. Rowley along with his opposition leader. And I mean, it's understandable why you would criticize your own opposition leader. That's part of your political to and fro, but Trinidad is not Guyana, and you are not the opposition leader in Trinidad. You are not part of the opposition party in Trinidad. Why are you seeming like you are very willing and interested to be part of Trinidadian politics in that sense, as a politician? If you'd like to be a commentator, I mean, feel free. I am a commentator on Trinidadian politics too, and I commentate on Guyanese politics, but as a politician, I don't think you have any active part to play in Trinidadian politics. But he did cover a few very interesting things in the live, and we'd taken just a snippet of it. The entirety of the live was 41 minutes, and the entirety of the live didn't pertain to the topics that we are interested in. It wasn't, to be fair to him, it wasn't the whole of his life he harped on this topic. He just covered it for possibly 2 minutes and then moved on to various different things that pertain to his constituents. So we're catching into his life just as he finished wading in to their opposition leader, speaking about the opposition leader, where the opposition leader criticized the Guyanese government about how they purchased their vaccines, their Sputnik vaccines. They purchased their Sputnik vaccines. If you're not sure about this, it may be very important, and I'd see if I can post a link to that video, to have a refresher on exactly what went on with the Sputnik vaccines that Guyana have been supplied with. It's a very interesting story that gets pretty deep and pretty conspiratorial. You can check that out in my previous video. But we're catching on to his life here right after he spoke about the opposition leader in Guyana, and he lambasted the opposition leader for speaking out of turn about the Guyanese procurement of these vaccines.
This vaccine is one of the most sought after pharmaceutical in the world currently, because obviously the world is gripped by a COVID-19 pandemic. So this vaccine is the item that is most in demand in terms of drugs on the world market. Naturally, the market forces will determine the price. Anything that you buy in today's free world, the price is determined by the market value.
That is not exactly true. That is not exactly true, especially when we're speaking about the vaccine. Many of the producers of these vaccines have already said that they aren't selling it on the global market. This isn't currently open to the free market and to the rigors of the free market and to the price fluctuations of the free market. Many of these vaccines are still very controlled by the governments and different governments. And according to the expose that was done, the money that they paid for their vaccine wasn't just paid to the producer of the vaccine because of the market prices and the supply and demand. It was paid to a sheikh because the sheikh chose that price to give them it to.
The sheikh, one of the richest men in the world, would hustle Guyana a few cents. One of the richest men on planet Earth, the Sheikh of Dubai.
Listen. I'm sorry, Mr. Attorney General of Guyana. I'm not sure if you'd see this. You seem more of a Facebook watcher. I'm not sure how much of this you'd see, but I'm sorry, Mr. Attorney General of Guyana, but this isn't the Sheikh of Dubai. This is a Sheikh in Dubai. This isn't the main Sheikh of Dubai. This is one of his proxy nephews. In this case, you didn't get Mufasa. You didn't get his son Simba. You didn't even get the wicked Uncle Scar. You got someone of Scar, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh cousins, nephews.
A couple dollars for vaccine? These people are mad people. Well, we know that they are mad people. But every day you are seeing how mad they are. To even conceive. That man has, I don't know how many planes. How many yachts? What, that man is a multi-billionaire.
Just by the way, also, as a matter of correction, the article pointed out that this man, this specific sheikh, doesn't actually have that many planes. While the other sheikhs in Dubai and the other princes, they fly their own jets, he rents the jets. Not saying that the man isn't obviously rich, but the reason he may be rich is because he is swindling these poor countries.
And he will choose a poor-ass country like Guyana to steal a few dollars.
The irony of me just saying that and then he coming to say that just because Guyana seems, in his tone, poor ass, just because Guyana seems that way, the prince wouldn't steal from them. Do you think that people who do steal have some kind of inhibition from stealing from people who have a little bit of resources?
And of course you have Mr. Rowley. Well, I don't have to say much because there's a man bearing my name, Anil Roberts, a former minister, who said everything that I would have wanted to say to Mr. Rowley. And I recommend that you look at that video that is so widely circulated on Facebook. Listen carefully to how Anil Roberts, how he slaughtered Prime Minister Rowley. I don't need to say anything except to say that Guyana remains the country that has brought in to its borders the most vaccines. The most vaccines. And we have half the population of Trinidad and Tobago. Rowley has one of the most populous country, and he measures it against Grenada, where there are about 60,000 people, half of whom are children. He measures it against St. Vincent, where you have 100,000 people. And then he says Trinidad is doing well. Look how much St. Vincent has bought in, and how much Trinidad has. Trinidad has 1.9 million people. Those people got a couple thousand people.
I don't know where he got his information from, but the last time I saw, Trinidad had something like 1.39, close to 1.4. Some places may say 1.4, some places still say 1.3. I've known Trinidad's population at 1.3 million since I was a child, and I haven't been a child for a little while now. The next thing that's very curious about this is where he gets his information from. He looks at Anil Roberts, the original as we know him down in Trinidad here, the original Mr. Tupul. That's an interesting story. You should probably Google that one if you don't know it yet. This man is the Attorney General of Guyana. He is representing an entire country, and he is getting his views on Trinidad and Tobago and on Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister from an opposing politician on Facebook making raucous commentary. I know I see some people on Twitter and they're wondering why exactly is Guyana so worried about Trinidad and what mind do they have to pay to Trinidad's politics? First off, as I said in the previous video, part of this I think is them trying to make sure that they save face because of the whole international expose on the sourcing of the Sputnik vaccines and the whole Dubai shake and all that bacchanal. And the second part is because the Guyanese government has an affinity to the Trinidad and Tobago opposition party. That's obvious, and the reasoning for it also is just as obvious as it is. Both parties appeal to the East Indian descendant community. It seems pretty obvious now, right? If you're looking at Trinidad and you're looking at Guyana, both of our countries received the larger numbers of the East Indian indentured laborers. That's another video I did. See that video if you'd like to see some history on the East Indian indentured laborers and how they came to the Caribbean and what they did and the struggles they went through and their persistence and how that persistence and holding on to their culture and their identity helped them to stay alive in this new world. And that may just be the exact thing that helps the Trinidadian party to have such a link with the Guyanese party. When Guyana has election, you'd see some members from the Trinidad and Tobago UNC go across to Guyana. I'm not sure if when Trinidad has elections, if the same happens, but I would not be surprised if it does happen, because there is that affinity. And the problem with that we're seeing here is now the Guyanese government is seeing themselves as being more aligned to the Trinidad and Tobago opposition party. And whether or not you have an affinity for them, whether or not they and you may be friends, if you are the government of Guyana, you deal with the government of Trinidad and Tobago. As fellow CARICOM members, you deal government to government. And it doesn't sound good for the Attorney General of a fellow CARICOM nation to be commenting about how some former politician has slaughtered the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, I'm sure he doesn't mean it literally, and it's not like it's a call to violence or something like that. I'm not suggesting that. But even in the political slant of it, that's some heavy political mudslinging. That's what happens when politicians sling mud at each other. And then you can ask yourself as a Trinidadian, why would a Guyanese politician be slinging mud at a Trinidadian politician? It just doesn't make sense. And whether or not I am a personal supporter of Rowley, I am a Trinidadian, and it just doesn't seem like proper foreign relations for the Attorney General of a foreign country to be addressing our Prime Minister in that manner. In fact, that was part of the whole reason that Rowley ended up in trouble with his initial statements in the first place. That was one of the criticisms I had of it. I didn't think that Rowley's initial statements where he spoke about Guyana and he commented about the WHO status of Guyana's vaccines, I didn't think that he necessarily meant anything negative. He was trying to make a point about his country and make himself look good and his government on their duties in vaccines. But just by mentioning another country, you saw the furor that erupted from it. So I would like to know that what does this Guyanese Attorney General think is going to happen by mentioning the Prime Minister of another country in that like manner? And something I noted too, I could hear that he listens quite a bit to our opposition. Because even how he addressed Dr. Rowley, the tone of how he spoke sounded the way our opposition addresses the government. And speaking about how our opposition addresses the government, let's take a look also how they address the media. A press release released by our opposition leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. I read for you the subject line. Bear in mind, this is just the subject line. Rowley's creepy infatuation with me hit a new level of weirdness today when he stood in Parliament and lied to the country that I had COVID-19. I am sorry to disappoint the devoted admirers in PNM, but I don't have COVID and I never did. Almost 800 people have died from COVID-19. Rowley must stop dreaming about me and do his job. That is all just the subject. After reading the body of the press release, you'd notice that the subject that they left there is actually nearly 2 paragraphs of the body of this press release. The release isn't that short, but I'd like to read this, and I'd like for you to comment something for me. Tell me if this sounds like the writing style of a mature 60-something-year-old lawyer who was the former Prime Minister of our country, or if this sounds like the writing of a 24-year-old intern who is trying to burn someone. Keith Rowley again lied to the country under parliamentary privilege when asked serious questions of whether or not he was vaccinated from the supply of Pfizer vaccines that entered the country secretly. He again refused to answer the simple question of whether he took the secret Pfizer vaccine. Instead, Rowley's infatuation with me hit a new level of weirdness when he stood in parliament and lied to the country that I had COVID-19. What's next? Will Rowley start writing creepy emails about me? Oops, been there, done that. I am so sorry to disappoint my devoted admirers in PNM, but I don't have COVID and I never did. Over the last 6 years, Keith Rowley has had no Patrick Manning to hide behind, and thus the country now sees him for the impotent man he is. Almost 800 people have died from COVID-19. Rowley must stop dreaming about Kamla and do his job. Signed or at least marked, represented as Kamla Persad-Bissessar, SCMP leader of the opposition. Now, in the comments, you tell me, does that sound like a full-age lawyer writing? Rowley's infatuation with me hit a new level of weirdness? That sounds like a weird line. Will Rowley start writing creepy emails about me? Oops, been there, done that. What is this? And then finally to say that the country now sees him for the impotent man he is. I am not sure, but I would have thought that incompetent might have been the word someone was going for there. Impotent gives a different kind of suggestion. You do know that, right? And to top it all off, in the last line, the writer referred to Kamala as third person, while throughout the rest of the release, it was me and I as in first person. Now, I am no writing expert, but I just found some things in that a little suspicious and interesting. Tell me in the comments what you think, and do you think that this press release had a purpose in the first place? I'm disappointed in our opposition. I wish that we can have a much more useful and rigorous opposition, because the more effective our opposition is, they hold a better flame to the government, and hopefully that would allow our government also to function better. But one can hope. If you haven't liked the video, again, click that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe also, and click the notification bell so you can know just when new videos drop. And another video will be dropping tomorrow at 10 a.m. and I'll see you then.
And you feel the music, rising with the tide.